My name is Patrick Franham, and I'm the director of the graduate program here in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at the University of Alabama. I've been in this position since August of 2019, and through this position, my main job is to really help graduate students navigate through our program so that they can go from first year graduate student to obtaining their degree and moving on to the next step in their career. So I'm really excited that you are able to be with us today for our virtual recruiting weekend, and I'm excited to tell you a little bit about how our graduate program is structured. So our graduate program is designed around a 5-year program with specific steps along the way to make sure that you are getting the training and the experience that you need to be successful. Year 1 mostly focuses on coursework and advisor selection. That's especially through the fall, and then beginning in the spring and summer, starting your independent research career. In year 2, you generally will complete all of your formal coursework and finish up your cumulative exams, which is our version of a written comprehensive exam. And the culmination of your second year is completing an initial research review, which would be a presentation in front of your dissertation committee, basically discussing the research that you've done over the last 2 years. Moving into year 3, you'll have finished all of your formal coursework and you'll really be focusing on research full time. At the end of your third year, we have a committee meeting known as the oral candidacy exam. And at this exam, you would update your committee on the research progress you've made since your initial research review, as well as present a proposal for some original research project that you would hypothetically like to do were you given a grant to pursue it. Upon completion of the candidacy exam, at that point you are formally designated a candidate for the PhD by the university. And from there on out, it's really working to complete research to write a dissertation. So the 4th and 5th year are almost entirely research-based and working on dissertation preparation, and conclude with an oral defense of your dissertation with a seminar in front of the faculty and other graduate students, and then a defense in front of your committee members as well, before finally being awarded the PhD. One of the things that's important is over this 5 years is the University of Alabama guarantees financial support through a teaching assistantship. And so this will cover a monthly stipend for living expenses, as well as covers tuition and health insurance. Right? So this really allows you to let research be your first priority and working towards that PhD degree. In the first year, again, first and second year, we're really looking at coursework, and that's starting with making sure you've got the fundamental knowledge across disciplines, and then really being able to go into graduate level understanding in areas that are important for your research in the lab. We do this through a mixture of lecture courses and lab courses, or lecture courses and seminars, I should say. And one of the interesting new aspects that we've brought to our curriculum is an introduction of first-year core courses. And we call these our integrated foundational chemistry courses. And these are 2 courses that cover really the whole breadth of undergraduate chemistry, from physical, analytical, organic, and biochemical. But instead of presenting these topics kind of in a checklist style, how you might have had them in undergrad, we really want to show you how the full range of chemistry is integrated together, and that what you learn in physical chemistry actually has a bearing on what you learn in biochemistry, and what you learn in analytical chemistry can affect how you set up organic reactions. And so we think it's really important to go through this and make sure, A, that everyone is starting from the same foundation, and that all of our students have this really broad understanding of fundamental pieces of chemistry and how they fit together to make up kind of the modern chemical world. The other important course that we have, and this is a course you take in your second year, is a course focused on reading chemical literature and developing your communication skills, both written and oral. These skills are as important as any skills that you learn in the lab, and so we want to make sure that we take time to focus on developing those skills. The other main focus, especially of your first semester, is the process of choosing a research advisor. And obviously, this is a really important step. This is the person who's going to be responsible for mentorship and training in the laboratory. And usually this relationship is a relationship that even goes on past your PhD in terms of continuing to mentor and think about career trajectories. The way we do this process is kind of as soon as you get on campus in August, we'll have a series of research seminars which are offered by each lab. And then we ask students at the conclusion of those seminars to interview with at least 4 faculty members where they might be interested in their research. And during these interviews, it's really you interviewing the faculty member, getting to know a little bit more about their research, what projects might be open, what life in their lab is like, talking with some of their graduate students probably to get the other side of the relationship and see what graduate students think about being in that lab. But generally a couple of months to really get to know the faculty members and the graduate students there. And then in early November, you would submit a preference list of those advisors, and the department works to assign you a research group with the goal of meeting as many first choices as possible. Obviously, sometimes there are things we can't control, such as labs being full or changes in lab funding situations, but in general, we try and match up students with their first choice as often as possible. And this is something that you should really be thinking about now, and really, no matter where you end up going to graduate school, really going ahead and putting some forethought into who you might want to work for is a good idea. Because it's in undergrad, a lot of times it's about the name of the school that you go to. As you move into graduate school, that really shifts to the advisor that you work for is really going to be the name that you take away from your work here and that you're going to be able to use to move to your next position after you get your PhD. And so you really need to be thinking about what questions do you find interesting in terms of looking at the spectrum of chemical questions. How does your prior research experience that you may have had as an undergrad influence, going into a lab where you are already starting off with a little bit of experience, or maybe you want to try and learn some very different techniques or go into a different field? Are you more of a computational versus an experimentalist? Are you more interested in application-driven research or fundamental research? These are all things that you'll want to think about, and there's not a right or wrong answer to any of these. You just want to make sure that your specific interests are going to be able to match with some of the labs that you're interested in working in. So that's something that, again, you can be doing now and be ready when you show up in August, either at the University of Alabama or any school, to go ahead and get you prepared for making the best step forward on selecting your research advisor. All right, the other thing that we do over the 5 years is to make sure that you're making progress toward your goal. Couple of things we don't want to have happen. One is we don't want you to end up in your 5th year and realize that you haven't done enough research to write a paper or you're not prepared to defend your dissertation. This is definitely a process that can be done in 5 years. And so we want to make sure that you are making the progress you need to be prepared to be successful at the end of those 5 years. The other important thing that we want to keep track of as you're going through this process is to make sure that the PhD degree still matches your career goals. It's not incredibly uncommon that someone maybe hasn't done a lot of in-lab research before, comes into the PhD program, works for a couple of years, and realizes that, this program really isn't for me. I really don't want to do PhD level work. I would prefer to do master's level work. There's a lot less responsibility, a lot less pressure, much more of a come in 9 to 5, do things, get your job done, and go home. And so there's certainly different levels of scientific research, and not everybody necessarily wants the pressures and the responsibilities that come with a PhD. And so, again, it's not something you can know until you start to get into PhD level research. But once you do, we want to make sure, again, that it still matches really well with what your career goals are. And so to do that, we've got a couple of kind of checks along the way of this 5-year program. The first one's pretty generic in terms of your coursework. You need to maintain a 3.0 average overall. And this is actually a graduate school requirement, not a department requirement. We've got our written exams, which are cumulative exams. These are offered every month, and you have 20 chances over the first 2 years of your graduate career to pass 4 exams. This serves as a check on making sure that you're getting the foundational kind of academic experience to be able to do PhD level research. And then starting in your second year, we've basically got yearly check-ins with your committee members to make sure that you are making the progress you need to be making to be successful. So we have the initial research review in the second year, a candidacy exam in your third year, and then your final dissertation defense in your fifth year. Again, you can look at these as hurdles. We really tend to look at them as ways to make sure that you are going to be successful and you are still putting yourself on a path to success at the end of your time in our program. 2 other things that I want to mention in terms of coming to graduate school. A lot of times when we think about undergraduate degrees, it's really about getting that piece of paper. And part of PhD is getting that piece of paper with some different letters on it, but there's a lot more that you need to develop. I mentioned earlier you need to develop your ability to read the literature and to communicate using oral and written communication skills. The other thing that's really important is for you to develop expertise with cutting-edge instrumentation. And in this case, the University of Alabama is really nicely situated to help you do that. We've been fairly successful with getting some major research instrumentation grants to upgrade our facilities over the last 3 or 4 years. And at this point, we've now got really cutting-edge instruments in terms of our mass spec facility, brand new X-ray crystallographic facility that now allows us to do protein crystallography in-house as well as small molecule crystallography. And our newest upgrade is an upgrade to our NMR spectrometer. And that's actually still being installed as we speak. So being able to get experience with cutting-edge instrumentation is something that's going to be important when you go out on the job market and you can say, yes, I do know how to operate these equipment. I didn't learn on some equipment from the 1990s or something like that. The other thing that's going to be really critical when you leave graduate school is the fact that you need to create a professional network. Within your research field, people need to know who you are and what you've done. And one of the ways we do that is through publishing papers, but the other way is through a professional network. And this is generally made by going to scientific conferences and presenting your work and meeting people there. Now, going to scientific conferences, especially right now under COVID conditions, isn't really a possibility. But as we get back to normal life, this will be a really key part of your graduate school experience. Going to conferences is expensive, airfare, registration fees, hotels, and so to try and help make sure that you are getting to scientific conferences, the department, the university, and the graduate school all pitch in to support up to $1,000 per year of conference travel for every graduate student. And over the last few years, we've averaged about $20,000 a year in travel funding for our department. So again, this is a part of looking at graduate school as kind of a different experience, that it's not just about getting the grades and passing the classes, that there are a few other aspects that you need to build in to have a successful graduate career and make sure that you're well prepared to move on to the next step in your career. So that's a brief overview of our program here at the University of Alabama. I'll be available on Saturday of our official recruiting weekend to answer any questions you have about how our program works, and I look forward to seeing you there.